Thank you. My name is Trity Pourbahrami. I am the daughter of Mahvash Aidun and Esfandiar Pourbahrami. My husband Peter Kapak is sitting in the audience, and I have two children. My oldest daughter is Niku, and she's in grade 3, and my youngest daughter is Mina, and she's in grade 1, and they're participating in the mini Congress. That's why you're not seeing them here. I've been involved in the Zoroastrian community since the early 90s, so it's been about 25 years for me that I've been involved, and it has transformed my life. Today we only have an hour and 15 minutes, and we're going to attempt to cover one of what I believe the richest subjects, which is Zoroastrian parenthood. It's not a lot of time, therefore we're just starting a conversation. We're just starting it, and what I'm hoping is what you hear today will have a ripple effect through your communities, through your groups, and we can actually start talking about parenthood and talking about Zoroastrian parenthood in North America. The idea came to me in 2012 when I was at the New York Congress and I was on the intergenerational panel. We did a quick survey of the audience, and there were hardly any members of the audience that were around my age and had young children. I thought, what is going on? Where are the parents of young children? It's going to be detrimental to our community if the parents of young children are not involved. And we don't even know why they're not involved. So that's where the idea came from. And I was delighted to hear yesterday morning that ideas tend to start in LA. The Fazana idea, I think, started here. So I'm hoping this idea of getting parents more involved is going to start in LA as well. Over the past 6 months, the panel members who I'll be introducing to you in a little bit, and I have been meeting about once a month, and we've been sharing our challenges and successes as parents and trying to figure out how to tackle this subject. It's not an easy subject to tackle, and I need you to suspend your judgment. I need you to use your vahumanu, or good thinking, to listen to what we have to present. Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to introduce our first speaker. She's going to come up. She's going to have only 15 minutes to cover her topic. Then she's going to sit down. I'm going to introduce the second speaker. She's going to come up. She's only going to have 15 minutes. And then she's going to present her topic. And then I'm going to sit down. The same thing until our last speaker. After all speakers are done, I have some questions that I'm going to pose to the panel that's based on what I've heard from parents. Then our 1 hour and 15 minutes will be over, but we have time before the mixer, which is at 6:45. So what I'm hoping is the conversation will get started, and you will approach the panelists, you'll approach each other, and there's going to be a very vibrant, fun conversation about parenting. Does that work for everybody? Yeah. Okay, great. So our first speaker is Dr. Natalie Gandhi. She is among the first Parsis to be born in America, and is the first Zoroastrian born in the land of Lincoln, Springfield, Illinois. A philosopher and entrepreneur, she has worked in the academic world and in Silicon Valley's environment of innovation, disruptive technologies. Natalie has 4 advanced degrees, spanning physics, philosophy, and financial markets, and is a nationally awarded scholar. She's a founding member of the World Zarathushtri Chamber of Commerce. Natalie was awarded for spearheading entrepreneurial conferences for WZCC in Chicago. She's a former chair of New York's WZCC chapter and a current WZCC world director. Natalie and her husband, Rusi, who's sitting in the audience, who also has an MBA, have traveled extensively in connection with Zoroastrian activities. The greatest journey is their most recent journey. The couple was blessed with the joyous birth of their lovely daughter in 2013. Her name is Asha. Natalie feels the world offers infinite avenues for wonder, exploration, and creative growth. Please put your hands together for Natalie. I think so.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today to hear my story. It is one of marshaling strength to create new life. I hope the story can inspire you to grasp your strength and use it for creating something beautiful. I have a disclaimer as I start. Please don't do what I did. I became a new mom after I turned 50. If at all possible, please have your children earlier so you can enjoy them sooner. Our story is one of determination in the face of uncertainty and danger, resulting in adventure and joy. Usually, becoming a new parent might take a visit with your spouse to a faraway bed and breakfast, a fine dinner around a fireplace, some red wine, a few sweet nothings whispered back and forth, and some help from Mother Nature. But I didn't get married until my late 40s. Encountering that circumstance, I began seeing doctors in my early 40s to explore what options existed for me. The first 3 doctors I saw all said the same thing. They said, "Please go away, you are too old, we can't help you, there is no help for you, and you will not have a baby." By the 3rd doctor, I had gathered my wits about me. I firmly insisted, "No, doctor, you must understand the odds are low, but anyhow, I want your help." From there to my husband, Rusi, and I actually becoming a pregnant couple was a road spanning more than a decade. It required great medical intervention, signing liability release forms several times over, many physical tests, travel, cost, intricate logistics, and scheduling. I had cardiac stress tests where I spent months prior prepping because I wanted to make sure I'd get an A on the test. I wasn't shy asking for my A when I ran on the cardiologist treadmill. It was a private pursuit because I wasn't going to run the risk of anyone's negativity. It took steady determination. Finally, I was pregnant and on the road to welcoming our beautiful little girl, Asha. But we had a hammer day. Rusi and I moved from one set of doctors to the obstetrician who would manage the pregnancy and the baby's delivery. I thought he would be set to see us, but he walked into the room with his assistant, both of them shaking their heads and looking grim. They sat down and proceeded to outline many medical risks the baby and I each faced. He even gestured. If the risk to a woman at 35 was this much, the risk to me was so much. I could face heart failure, stroke, liver failure, kidney failure, and so on. The baby could be compromised, and I might be ordered to physical confinement. I peeked at Rusi and saw he was pretty shocked, although the information was really not new to us. I started taking the impact of what the doctor was saying when he mentioned that I could go blind. That one would be pretty grim, I thought. The doctor's words were especially pressing, since he was a senior medical expert responsible for the training of many younger doctors. Near the end of the meeting, I posed a question. "Doctor, I want to understand the risk as you're describing it. Is this situation more or less dangerous than being a race car driver?" "Oh," he replied, "it's much more dangerous because you don't hear of race car drivers dying every day." Rusi and I had just told my parents that they were going to become grandparents with their first grandchild. After the meeting with the doctor, I had to call them a second time and let them know I might be in for a difficult time. My dad asked, "What was the worst-case scenario?" To which I said, "Death and death." In the silence across the 1,000 miles between us, I explained, death of the mother, death of the child. But perhaps the worst case would not ensue. Then I called my brother and gave him a couple pointers from my folks in case the situation went negative. The race car driver analogy helped. I more or less learned to drive on the Washington Beltway when I was finishing my PhD at the University of Maryland. Many people complain about the Beltway, but it turned out I loved it. I loved how the traffic moved at 80 miles an hour and how I would race around from Bethesda to College Park. Now pregnant, I imagined awakening to find myself driving a race car. Well, it is really not the time to panic. Instead, you should keep your chin up, hold the steering wheel firmly without clenching it rigidly, and keep your foot steady on the accelerator. Relax, keep calm, and drive to the finish line. So that's the approach I took to the pregnancy. It worked. I had a beautiful pregnancy and loved every minute of it. With all the danger, I felt in the midst of a grand adventure and very daring. The adventure made me happy. Fertility is a matter of capacity. Humans have a wealth in untold capacities, so one must manifest a rounded set of them. Another joy of becoming a parent is that when you do it, you also help your spouse to become a parent. It is pretty special to watch your spouse enjoy the experience and fall more and more in love with your baby each day. In Nepal, there is a tradition of selecting a little girl and anointing her as a living goddess. She is taken for a time into seclusion in the temple. Our daughter Asha is among us and not in seclusion, but she seems to me a precious little divinity. When we left the hospital with Asha, she attended an elegant wedding reception for Rusi's nephew, Naroz, and his new wife, Parinaz, that same evening. Some months later, Naroz asked, what surprised me most as a new parent? Well, all new parents are indulged in the conceit that their baby is perfect. Yet what surprised me was that little Asha was actually really so extra perfect that I thought it not a conceit. I thought it true. If Ahura Mazda had sent us a jewel, he must have gone into his marble bag of precious jewel souls and found not pearl or ruby or emerald or sapphire or gold or jade or topaz or amethyst, but something so special and rare, it was perfection perfected as he sent little Asha to us. How could he give me something so precious? There is joy in something so transcendent, so awesome. When one goes about with a baby, complete strangers rush up and exclaim, "Oh, she's adorable." Indeed, they are adoring her in the moments they have with her, so the worship extends among others. Another amazing aspect in the experience is that Asha has done nothing yet to get in trouble. She hasn't gotten fired, she hasn't failed a test at school, she hasn't fought with a sibling. No one has quite yelled at her during her existence. It is a remarkable thing to be around someone so unflawed, so blessed. Some might remember Christopher Reeve's wife, Dana. When she passed away, friends remarked that she was a luminous soul. That sounded pretty good for an obituary. I wondered what it meant. And could I become luminous, or at least travel in its direction? And if I could become, and being Asha's mom adds to a luster to things. She's a bright presence herself. So the light of youth that is remarked in the Gathas is found with her. Spiritually, I travel forward towards light. Many thanks are due. Rusi went to Udvada to pray at Iran during the pregnancy. A special machi for the pregnancy and delivery was done. Roington Engineer graciously hosted Rusi. Rusi did an incredible amount to become a father and shouldered great cost. The Gujarati Club was his first circle of friends for discussing my high-risk state. Their support was a boost during the pregnancy. The joy and warmth of so many Zoroastrians around the world had a positive effect during the adventure. My doctors were in their office during the Hurricane Irene at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. Everyone was working with their coats on and shivering. The electricity had gone out, but a backup generator powered the building's medical equipment. That was dedication. Innovation in many forms was crucial to our becoming parents. The moral law also provides the moral law for oneself, or commands of prudence so necessary to practical wisdom. As well as love for my siblings, the undertaking to create new life was something I took as my good, my prudential merit, and a benefit to the newly created person, the baby. I thank America for helping me be a bold person who would embrace the freedom and adventure necessary to achieving her ends. And I thank Asha, who kicked strongly enough while in the womb to show her growing spirit would be bright and independent. She felt like she was trekking over the Himalayas, and she is so much eager for life. Some thoughts from the experience. Nature has a good thing going for our becoming parents. The coordination of infinite complexity that it gives to the reproductive process exceeds our science. The natural order is beautiful and something to respect and protect. Almost everyone finds babies to be very sweet. Confirmation bias or evidence, their sweetness tells us that our initial nature is good. Even the stiffest people will warm up around the baby and smile. It is very eerie, but babies seem to gaze at a person with a steady discernment, as though they already know everything you could say. If we think the mind of Ahura Mazda to be an infinite intelligence who does know everything, then he has very kindly shared a small part of that divine essence with each of us in our intelligence. Perhaps that is why a little baby seems close to God. We chose a Zoroastrian name for our child, and those without one can have fun researching for an ancient Zoroastrian nickname from our incredible tradition. A major social trend in America is the decline of marriage, now at its lowest point. Don't get caught up in this trend. Marriage is a fascinating and powerful institution like no other, a noble thing and something you owe yourself and the spouse who would otherwise be without your care. Have kids. It's natural. Kids are fun. Parenting takes a cooperation, which is the paradigm, the first form of social coordination. After there is a child, the child will need schooling, a darbe-mer, a city, and a country. So more social cooperation is needed for our youth to live and flourish. Several times as I've been out with Asha in tow, a person has mentioned that they were unable to bear children. There were attempts that miscarry. Yet I think these people's pleasure in seeing Asha shows their nature and care is also of the sort that a parent has. Stewardship of the things you care about is a kind of parenting, a nurturing for a flourishing world. Will Zoroastrians survive? Well, if you want to survive, you will survive. Departures for me include Yasna 53. It is an amazing verse because it spans so much and thus comprises, in a small crystalline form, the social scheme so important to Zoroastrians. In demographic concerns, Julian Simon's perspective is often overlooked. He held that humans are the best natural resource. Leon and Amy Cass are beloved professors at the University of Chicago with helpful insights into the fraught nature of courtship in America. I would love for us to know more about courtship in distinct religious communities, such as with the Amish and the Mormon, and in Persian tradition. Nietzsche asks, how strong must one be? One must be as strong as necessary, he thinks. We can be strong in our adventures, and it can be a great deal of fun. In my adventure, I got to be a famous race car driver, and the race made a beautiful and new human being, Asha Gandhi, whom everyone adores. Thank you.
So now we have our second of three presentations. Fereshteh Mazdyasni immigrated to the United States in 1979 to pursue her MS, or Master's of Science, in Petroleum Engineering at the University of Southern California. In 1983, she married her husband, who is also in the audience, Merbod Mazdyasni, with whom she's a proud parent of two children, Cameron and Anahita, who are 28 and 27. In 1996, Fereshteh decided to return to her academic passions to pursue a Master's of Art in Psychology. In 2001, she became a licensed marriage and family therapist and is presently a professor and child therapy program director at Phillips Graduate Institute in Los Angeles. For many years, she was an active member of the Kankosha Mubedan and a prominent editor of the Kankosha Mubedan's publications. In addition, she was one of the original founders and teachers of the San Fernando Valley and LA area's Child and Youth Zoroastrian Studies classes. She takes pride in seeing many of her former students now hold active leadership positions in the Zoroastrian community, championing educational, cultural, social, and religious gatherings for youth and adult Zoroastrians. Fereshteh Jan, please join us.
Am I good? Thank you, Trity John, Natalie, Shahram, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The topic of my presentation is in and out of Z. For this presentation, I used a 10-item questionnaire to interview some young adult Zoroastrians, ages 23 to 30. I targeted the youth who are either active leaders or active participants in our Z community. This is a result of an informal qualitative research. In order to organize the information, I used the famous frame of psychosocial developmental stage of early childhood to young adulthood, defined by Erik Erikson, 1902, 1994. I was privileged to be in Dr. Anishiravani lecture, and it seemed that he is a fond of Erik Erikson too. We will start with 3 to 6 years old. This is the psychosocial stage of initiative versus guilt. It's very obvious we want to help our children to have initiative. The problem is that their logic is still not fully developed. They are 3 to 6 years old. So what do we do? In psychology, when we want to increase a desired behavior, such as reciting prayers or going to dharmas or any desired behavior like that, we use reinforcement. We call it reinforcement because we charge people, and it has to have a fancy name, but it's basically bribing with purpose. Reinforcers are praise, attention, love, unconditional praise, love, and attention. And yes, cookies and candies and stickers are reinforcers too. The youth that I interviewed, that was right on. With kind of a little bit shame and guilt, they said, Fereshteh, and a couple of them are sitting here, with kind of guilt and shame. They said, Fereshteh, the main reason we came to your Z study classes were the hoorays and the good job, and also the cookies and stickers were really helpful. They also fondly talked about when they performed on Dharma stage, or even when they said the Yatoahu Ashembohu, and the love they got, the acceptance they got, the hooray they got from the Zoroastrian community, it was extremely helpful for them. That is what gave them the initiative versus guilt. So if they say it worked, Erik Erikson and psychologists, they say it works, so don't hesitate to bribe with purpose at that stage. It works. The next stage is industry versus inferiority. This is the age of 7 to 11 years old. These are the elementary school years. Either they develop a sense, if they become industrious, they develop a sense of, I'm good, I'm competent, I'm good enough, or they feel inferior, they feel I'm less than. So how do we help at this stage? Let's see what happens at this stage. These are elementary school years. Most of their time, what they do, they go to the conventional schools, right? And they acquire general academic knowledge. At home or Z study classes, with limited hours, they learn a little bit about spirituality and religion, right? Chop information gets forgotten. A lot of hours in school, little bit Zoroastrian study. So I think the name of the game is integrating these two information and applying it to their life. Then this information will not be forgotten. They become Zoroastrian rather than they say, I'm Zoroastrian. An example is that right now, issues around environment are hot topics, correct? In school, they learn about environment. So when they gain the very modern academic knowledge about respect for environment, it's going to be extremely helpful if we remind them that our religion 3,000 years ago advocated and prescribed for respect for fire, earth, air, and integrate it, then apply it to their life. When we went camping, my kids always told their cousins and their friends, in order to save yourselves from our mom's 1-hour lecture, don't throw anything in the fire and keep the campground clean. They also accused me that I'm the same as the father from my big fat Greek wedding, and I think everything is rooted in Zoroastrianism, and I never denied it. I think I believe in that. Before I move on, Shahram John is going to talk about these study classes, but I have to mention this, that not only we should teach them the fundamental concepts of our divine, wonderful religion. What other religion? Zain, you blew my mind, okay? The concepts was so beautifully talked. I'm humbled that you guys are here. I'm Dr. Anshiravani Zain and all of you guys. What other religion says don't follow anybody, don't ask anybody? Use your divine wisdom, make choices, and if they are good choices, they are in symphony, since Zain is here, symphony with Asha, and you're gonna feel good. What religion says that? How fabulous, how delicious this is to teach our kids this, right? The concept of Asha, the concept of good words and good deeds. But I have to tell you, based on my experiences, at this age, it is not enough to teach them the concepts. We need to help them to articulate about their religion. Memorize couple of, based on their age, couple of paragraphs. The reason I'm saying it in shows, in Zoroastrian study classes, if they simply say, I'm a Zoroastrian, the response is not going to make them feel industrious. It's going to make them feel inferior. What? Zebra, what? What? So I have found over the years, and talking to young adults that I talk to, first of all, let's teach them a little bit about the religion in their dominant culture and smoothen the conversation with talking about similarities. For example, if they say, I'm a Zoroastrian, right away, it's a one-God religion. Right away, in our community, there are a lot of Jewish people. Right away telling them education and knowledge is very important in our religion. And like your parents that they want you to be a good student, my parents forced me to be a good student. Do you see how it eases out the information, how it makes them feel good to deliver that rather than not preparing them for that? So there are little tricks like that that goes a long way to smoothen the conversation. Now, the next stage is the psychosocial stage of industry versus inferiority, which I talked about. Now we are moving to the psychosocial stage of this is the integration that I was talking about. And we are moving to the psychosocial stage of identity versus role confusion. These are 12 to 18 years old. These are middle school to high school ages. Identity versus confusion. These are confusion years. I call them distraction years. Their attention shifts to boys and girls, right? And usually from the dominant culture. These study classes materials become outdated, boring, and repetitive. These are not my words. They reported that. At times, they get very intimidated by hearing about or participating in coming-of-age ceremonies of their peers. Glamorous bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs intimidate them. And if we have a wonderful, wonderful ritual of Seder Pushi, So these are the years that if we know what's happening with them, why should they feel inferior? Make them ready for their Sedra-Pushi. Let them have a Sedra-Pushi. Then what is the inferiority? They have what others have. And it's some people that I talk about, Sedra-Pushi or not, it's not that. First of all, it's a commitment. Also, this is the stage that tremendously helped them with the sense of being a part of, competent, good enough, and we do have it, so why don't we practice it? At toward the later ages of this stage, these are the 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and they are gonna become extremely overwhelmed with the demands of pre-college years, right? These are the years, so confusion, distraction, what do we feel? We feel a gap, right? Where did they go? Where are they? Now, on a positive note, I have to tell you, they reported, they usually don't tell you that, but they reported that if they internalized the concepts of Zoroastrianism, it was extremely helpful for them. If they internalize the concepts of divine wisdom, they internalize the concepts of they truly have a choice and it's their responsibility to make choices, it helped them with choices of friends, it helped them with choices of drugs or no drugs, it helped them with choices of respect versus violence. It was tremendously helpful to have those foundations. They also reported the importance of rituals and reciting their prayers. I don't have time to go through it. I hear a lot about they have to learn the meaning of the prayers. Yes, they have to. But prayers, automatically reciting it, even if they don't remember the meaning or they forget the meaning or they don't know the meaning, by itself, it's calming. This is their word. They said, reciting our prayers when we were scared, anxious, or depressed saved the day for us. The rituals of nightly prayers, lighting candles, sending prayers to ancestors, helping for health, simply Khuda biyamurzi, were reported to be grounding and helpful when they felt lonely or distressed. And this is what the youth said. We think we lost them, they are practicing what they learned. Almost all the youth, they emphasize on the importance of peer relation and socialization. On top of the list, there were camps, Zoroastrian camps, also these sport events, Olympics, bowling nights, and congresses, they were mentioned. They raved about it. They all talked about the magic of sleeping under the same roof, having breakfast with each other, saying their prayers together. That was amazingly helpful for them to build lifelong relationships. And also, they fondly talked about nurturing fun and knowledgeable leaders and counselors. What they reported that there needs to be improved was conservatism, overly involvement of adults, and rigidity. They said being judged and being trusted, not being trusted with making decisions, and lack of collaboration was a big concern for them. We have been a minority for hundreds of years, even in our homeland, Iran. And the kind of fear-based attitude, conservatism, moving under the radar, not speaking our mind, which truly saved us as minorities. If we don't look into it, it's we are gonna lose our youth. I am a mother. I have been a Avesta class teacher. I have been a camp counselor. I know rules and laws and boundaries are important. But if we tighten the boundaries too much, the youth, they don't have space to make decisions, even to make mistakes, to grow. Either their personality crashes or they throw themselves out of this. And we really, really need to visit this. The last stage I'm going to be talking about is the young adulthood, which is intimacy versus isolation. These are some of the camp pictures that I just talked about. Intimacy versus isolation. The young adulthood, 18 and up, what happens is these are the years that either we lose them, they become isolated, or they keep connected. These are the years that they usually go away. And in our community, fortunately, usually they go to colleges. These are what they mentioned, the factors that help them to be connected. Z Club in colleges, non-judgmental collaborative leadership was essential. Mentorship by other Z youth in person or via social media. Z centers, Daramer in college towns. If the youth were embraced and welcomed, it was magical. And if they were judged and not collaborated with, they never went back. I don't have time. I already have run out of time. But talking about, we have to pay attention to the division between youth that they were born and raised here versus youth that they were born and raised other places, and help them to cover that gap. Z families in college towns. It was extremely important. If in college towns, there were families that they were willing to invite our youngster to their rituals. When they needed, they were there. Even to some gatherings, they kept connected. So preparing a list of families in each town that they are willing to host these youth or to be for them is important. We have to look into birthright trips together. At the later stage, they come back home or they come back to their hometown, and almost all of them simply said what brought them back was social gatherings. If families were involved in Daramer events, so families were socializing with other Zoroastrian families, mehmonis, Z weddings brought them back. My 28-year-old son, Cameron, said, when I came back from college, it was easy. It was like second nature to reconnect with familiar Z friends. When I heard that, I thought, mission accomplished. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Fereshteh. Our last speaker is Shahram Sohrab. He immigrated to the United States at the age of 11 with his family after the Islamic Revolution. He grew up in New York State and received his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Clarkson University before moving to the Bay Area in Northern California. He now lives in Southern California with his wife of 12 years. She is also in the audience, Ara. They're the proud parents of son Kamran, who I think is in the audience as well, right there, and daughter Kiana, who she's right there as well. So Kamran is 10 and Kiana is 8. Presently, both his children are taking Zoroastrian studies classes and Farsi classes. He's held the position of treasurer with the Persian Zoroastrian Organization and is an active member of the California Zoroastrian Center. In addition to his community involvements, he holds a senior electrical engineering position at Cadence Design Systems. Please welcome Shahram.
Thank you, Trity. Appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me here. Appreciate it. Maybe I should start by just saying how nervous I am. Then coming here, I think only God and I knew what I was going to deliver as a speech. Right now, I think only God knows. So bear with me. Why push our children to attend Zoroastrian and our language studies in today's busy and packed lifestyle? Some say there shouldn't be a push at all. Others are of the belief that their kids are exposed to enough at home. My wife and I believe there is a secret sauce. that it's not one or the other, but a combination of both exposure at home while having classes and experiences as a community. We believe they both go hand in hand and should not be mutually exclusive. We like to go to a center where our children, now 10 and 8, can gather, learn, feel like they are part of a broader community, so to have a sense of belonging. They have been going since the ages of 5 and 3. And at home, we celebrate our traditions such as Nowruz, Yalda, and we do speak Farsi. We try. In full transparency, it's hard. We both work and travel often. The idea of getting the kids up and at it on a Sunday is a constant challenge to them and for us. However, we have chosen to make this a priority like the other activities we all can relate to: soccer, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, art. I can just name them and keep going, but it's a never-ending list. Our discussion today is to begin exploring not just the challenges we face in growing and educating the future of our community, but the opportunities that we have. It's important to define what success is. In speaking with many of you, I believe success is when our kids can say, "I'm proud to be a Zartushti, and I'm very confident of who I am." Have we made the classes such that the kids are willingly attending? Are they choosing to be Sederpushit? Are they having fun? And most importantly, are they making lifelong friendships? I mentioned it was hard. I can't forget the eve of the first day of the Zoroastrian classes. We were all sitting around the kitchen table and talking about our summer memories, when my wife and I randomly shared that tomorrow would be the beginning of the Z, or the Zoroastrian and Farsi classes. My kids are smiling right now. There were a few seconds of dead silence in the room, followed by my daughter's tears and loud screams from my son. All my wife and I could hear was, "Why did you sign us up again? We told you last year we didn't want to continue. We're not going. You can't make us go." So it kept going on and on. Honestly, my wife and I were both caught off guard to the extreme reaction and doubted our decision. I reminded them of the fun they had last year in the playground after class and friendships that they had formed, which in that moment didn't get me far. We didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but we knew deep inside that we had hit a decision point. They had never had this reaction to any other class or program that they participated in. That's when we started to identify the gap of curriculum and structure between schools, other activities versus our Zoroastrian classes. This is the opportunity that we face now. Let's face it, we are an immigrant community, but we have always succeeded through many historical challenges. So let us strive, and it is part of our DNA, and give our kids the key to open the lock and excel in the opportunities that awaits them. So let's put the challenges on the table so we can better identify the opportunities mentioned. Many of these challenges that I'm about to share come directly from my kids and their friends. They include busy schedules, Monday through Saturday. The need and want to sleep in one morning a week. Their friends don't attend Sunday school. More homework, class length, viewed as boring and repetitive. And of course, the dreaded tests. Who wants to take tests on a Sunday? Anyhow, by show of hands, who here has faced this dilemma and has heard these challenges and excuses? And you can keep your hands up, actually, because now I want to see who stopped going. Anyhow, a round of applause for everyone who stuck with it. Before any of our children, or before any of our, teachers walk out, I would be remiss to not thank them for volunteering their time and caring for our kids. This is not easy, and it's all of our responsibility to provide our input and assist. We can't do anything about busy schedules of our kids and wanting them to sleep in. But our opportunities are to make the time spent at Datamare such that they look forward to going and having fun while learning and being exposed to our beliefs and our culture. As a broader community, we also have challenges that impact our children's development, which include having the resources to have supplies and to provide flexibility in curriculum design. musical instruments, art supplies, costumes for plays, game rooms, sports equipment, and etc. It is not uncommon for parents to disagree as to what should be taught in class and how it should be taught, and then add in what language it should be taught in. Which books should be used to teach religious and language classes? The list goes on. I guess we can say the one thing we don't shy from in our community is sharing our opinions. I think we can all agree about that, right? We should also recognize that, like other communities, the complexity of the disagreements is amplified by the newly immigrated families and mixed marriage families as well. I'll state the obvious. It should be the highest priority to ensure our children's physical and emotional safety are considered. It is everyone's responsibility to make sure this is fulfilled. Otherwise, this will be the last place that any of our kids would want to hang around at, and that will be the start of the demise of our community. Imagine Sunday mornings you're awakened by your children to ensure you're on time for their classes. They are excited to see their friends, have fun, and learn. My kids are laughing right now. So why is this important or valuable? As I remember growing up in upstate New York, I was the only Persian and definitely the only Zoroastrian besides my immediate family. I always felt different and less comfortable to speak of my background. While we are fortunate to now live in what some call Tehran Jealous, my children are still the only Zoroastrians at their school. This makes them feel different, like me all those years ago. On Sundays, not only they are not different, they are supported by others of the same beliefs and traditions and possibly language. If I had that growing up, I would have had greater confidence in my culture, background, and possibly in me. This sense of belonging is the true value of a community and a start of a new generation, building their own community. Learning Farsi, Dari, teachings of Zarathustra, attending cultural and religious ceremonies at our center all build upon that. Additionally, they see what our family priorities are by attending Sunday classes on a regular basis. At the beginning, I said we want to talk about the opportunities. I have set the groundwork, but now as a parent, I'm excited to talk about the possibilities of growth of our classes. Having an integrated curriculum, which includes art, music, drama, technology, and sports, to allow our children to be creative and express themselves, and learning while working as a team. Let me expand. Imagine our children rapping the verses of Gathas, or creating artwork while listening to spiritual stories. How about writing and performing a Zoroastrian play that involves children of all ages? How about an art contest that is based on a religious or cultural theme? Consider a talent show where each kid gets to shine on stage. My children are very envious of their Jewish friends who are, as part of their Sunday school, can select electives such as drama, technology, or art. In fact, our family goes and supports them in their productions such as The Wizard of Oz. All the activities I just mentioned would be done by our children of all ages. We don't have to go far, but we are definitely not consistent. There are Zoroastrian studies in Northern California that are actually based on the belief that kids will enjoy coming to Zoroastrian studies if they decide what fun activities to engage in. Nothing is perfect, so the kids provide input on how to continue improving the curriculum, thus being more invested. Giving our children choices is the spirit of Yata Huvairu. A Chinese proverb states, if you're planning for a year, sow rice. If you're planning for a decade, plant trees. If you're planning for a lifetime, educate people. Teachers, teachers, teachers. We are grateful to them, and we should invest in them and give them the resources they need to make the few hours they have with our children fun, if not the most fun they have had all week. As a part, I want to support and provide, whether it's connecting our teachers, allowing them to get certification, or as simple as giving a box of Sharpies. We can all agree there are many different paths ahead of us. What I value is the lasting friendships my children make with others at Daramer. In talking to representatives of several different centers and trying to better understand their best practices, I've noticed what naturally has brought children together has been their hands-on activities. And one example is cooking. Who wouldn't like to eat? Making sirog together, from making up the dough to frying it, or making ash and each family bring and supplying ingredients, and then cooking it together. Or what better way to make lork? By having kids bring their supplies and having them all mix the dried fruits and nuts and passing it to all. This is an example of learning when they don't realize they are, because they are simply having fun. Not every week needs to be about going into the classroom. We can alternate with these other activities. While our time together is wrapping up, this can't be the end of this dialogue. This should be just the beginning of our journey together. This year alone, we have seen significant changes in our curriculum at our center. The picture above, represents a new Sunday tradition, which involves the children singing songs, led by Mr. Shahruzash. Remember the story about the screaming and crying? This is not happening anymore. With that said, we are not quite yet at the ideal place where they are asking to go either. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the continuation of this dialogue and seeing more of our children on Sundays. Thank you.
How was it? Did we start a conversation? Okay. So as I mentioned, for now I'm going to ask some questions that have been prepared before, but I really hope that you can stay after this and talk to the panelists and each other about parenting and navigating what it is to be a Zoroastrian parent. So I'm going to start the questions by asking Natalie, our first presenter, in your opinion, Natalie, is parenting a civic act as well as a societal act?
Yes, I think that when you have a child, child is going to be a citizen. And a love of country is a very important thing. You want your child to love his or her country. And you can just see with our wonderful evening performances how much we love the countries we originated from. Whatever place you know and hold as your home is extremely important, and that includes citizenship. So I see that being a parent also involves raising somebody to be a good and productive citizen.
Thank you, Natalie. Fereshteh, based on your experience, both as a Zoroastrian studies teacher as well as a child and family psychologist, what types of books and activities are useful in teaching Zoroastrian studies and promoting the religion?
I have put some books on, I have to get up. We can use very focused religious books, right? I'm happy that Trity just said that Fezana has published wonderful, wonderful Zoroastrian books on different curriculum, and it's amazing. It's wonderful. Kankosh Mobedan some years ago had published some books such as I'm Getting Ready for My Sederpushi and the story of our Zoroastrianism. When I was teaching class Avesta, they were extremely popular. Kids that they were getting Sederpushi, they loved it, they used it, and I think with some revision of some pictures and some concept, we have to publish these. But some heroic historic books, such as a child version of Shahram, which instill courage and bravery and believing in worthy causes and things like that. But I have to tell you that I just brought random general books here. And like the book of No More Stinking Thinking, I have used it over and over to teach children about that how we can have negative thoughts, how we can have self-defeating thought, and how we can choose the positive preferred choice. We have the choice to choose that. And then I use some puppets such as this is Sepanto menu, this is Angra menu, and in different situations, what they say and what we use. So when we know the concepts, we truly shouldn't wait for publishers. We can use any books, any type of environment, diversity, skin. Again, our religion is, okay, yeah, I'm the big fat, the guy from Big Fat Greek Wedding. The respect for diversity in our religion, the مردم هفت کشور زمین. So any book about diversity, I connect it to Zoroastrianism. A focused book, but any book can be helpful for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Shahram, I really like the part of your presentation where you said there's an extra level of complexity and disagreement when there's diversity in our community. Can you expand on that for us?
Sure. I mean, if you look at our community, it's built, we have various subcultures right in our community. We have the Parsi subculture, we have the Zoroastrian, we have the newly immigrated Zoroastrians. What I see when attending the parent-teacher conferences, for instance, I see that when I compare myself, who have been in the US for about 35 years, I feel like I've assimilated to the North America or American culture, right? So I'm going to automatically start thinking different or have different expectations of what I would like my kids to potentially do in the classes or learn, versus someone who might have just newly arrived from Iran, who has been assimilated in the Iranian culture, right? So they have different expectations and needs, for example. So I'm of the belief that if my kids can speak Farsi and be bilingual, that's great. I would love that. Now, if they start writing Farsi, that's a plus. Do they have to know how to write Farsi with perfect grammar? You know, I can probably do away with that, right? But I've heard instances of folks who've just come over or who've been here from the past, just come over in the past 5, 10 years. Their needs are definitely different. They're asking that all teachers should be speaking Farsi, even in the Avesta classes, and the kids should be, you know, learning proper grammar every, you know, step of the way. And they have certain goals that they want their kids to accomplish coming out, which is slightly different, I think, than mine in that sense. So that I feel that's
how it's adding complexity.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Going back to Natalie, how do you think we can foster courtship, marriage, and family with a distinctive Zoroastrian ethos in our successive generations?
I hope we do that. I think as we progress, we have to have some answers about something like courtship. Things are very different in different parts of the world. You know, if you're from India or Iran compared to the North American dating scene, we have to understand a little bit about the differences in that regard, and how people in North America are supposed to join up and fall in love and get married and all of that. And some communities have very interesting courtship traditions that we never get a chance to find out much about. What do the Amish people do? Something successful. What do the Mormon people do? Something successful. Even for me, I don't know, but I think they have distinctive traditions. The Persians have distinctive courtship traditions. So I think it would behoove us to know more about this kind of thing and understand it a little better, and not make the single scene quite what it is sometimes at its worst in North America. It doesn't have to be that way, and we sure don't want that for our kids. You know, we want them to have a healthy way to carry out courtship.
Mm-hmm. So Fereshteh was very conscientious, and so she did not want me to ask her the second question. but we have time. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you the second question, Fereshteh. In your presentation, you mentioned historical conservatism and fear-based attitudes. Can you give us a little more on that?
You know, this is the attitude that I think it has been extremely necessary. I grew up in Iran. I visit Iran now. I know we have to be conservative. I know we have to watch what we say when we are a minority in a country. But then the same attitude, if we don't change it in a free country, then we lose our youth. The number one complaint youth had, they said, but the minute we go to Daramer, people are judging us. People are telling us what to do and what not to do. And give us some space. It's like good enough parenting. You know, good enough parenting is you create boundaries, but within the boundary, you give space for kids to explore, to make mistakes, to go back and forth, and develop a character. But if we tighten this and we put them under microscope, these kids suffocate. And in a free country, they leave us. And we really, the minute we want to, I always tell parents of a young kid, I say, pick your nose, you know, pick your nose, but it's actually pick your no-nose. So when you want to say no to somebody, your kid, think about it twice. Is it a real no? Is it a real suggestion? Or I can sit back and see what my kid is going to do with that. I mean, I think we really should do that with our young. In the survey, that was a number one complaint there.
Thank you, thank you. Last question from me. Shahram, it's really great to hear, and I think your kids have left, right? Or are they still here? That they're not screaming anymore. As those of us who've had those experiences, how do you think the change happened? What do you think was the motivator?
I mean, you know, the crying has stopped, but I mean, there's still plenty of challenges, right? Yeah. I have to say, though, that the picture you saw right at the end, I think that has really done it. You know, I don't think they even have realized how fun it is that when, thank you for Mr. Shahraz, actually couldn't be here today, but I mean, he's written songs and he plays a musical instrument, and he actually promotes having all the kids come up at 11 o'clock every Sunday, and he gets kids from, you know, kindergarteners to all the way to the teenagers, you know, all there, as you see. And so they all feel like a sense of, oh, you know, this is a community, we're all here together. And they're singing this beautiful song. And, you know, on the way home, I've had my daughter, Kiana, like just, you know, sing the songs in the back, and I don't say anything, but I'm like, this is cool, you know, this is happening. They're actually getting into it. And Shahraz asks every week for one of them to get up and perform and bring one of their own, musical instruments that play in school. And it's sort of like a semi-talent show. Mm-hmm. And as they step down, they get a little candy. And so I think that's step one. You know, another thing that my daughter says is that, Daddy, they painted the classroom, you know, light green. It feels warmer here. It's like, oh, this is awesome. You know, just like little changes, right? Every little thing helps. So I think we have to keep, you know, working on it. So.
Thank you. I want to thank my three panel members. Thank you very much for all the time and the many teleconferences. Please don't leave. I'm just going to give them our little token of appreciation, and I hope that the conversation continues.
That she's younger than all of us, but she babysat us, got us on phone, you know, we had excuses, you know, and then she got us together and get the conversation going, and your contribution to KLS Avesta classes, amazing. And Pete, thank you for supporting and being a fabulous supporter of him.
Thank you.